How's it going, Google debunkers? 75 degrees in here right now, but things are about to heat up. This is Philip Zeba. He is a TikTok personality who broadly makes fact videos. These videos can be everything from actual facts to widely disproving conspiracy theories and misinformation. This spring, I made 2 videos on Philip Zeba. In them, I went through his entire TikTok account, I found all of the pseudo-archaeology and pseudo-history conspiracies I could, and debunked almost every single one of them. You may have actually seen these videos. They did pretty well. And if you haven't, well then you should check them out. They are long enough to be the perfect thing to have on in the background while you clean your room. Instead of just dunking on Philip for 3.5 hours, I decided to use these videos as a call to action to Philip himself. What do you want, little dog? Can you? Yeah, I know. Wanna leave? You can leave. Oh, you don't have thumbs, you can't leave. In this call to action, I told Philip to use his channel of more than 1.5 million more responsibly, by not peddling heaps of misinformation as if it were fact. My hopes were low that Philip would actually respond to this, and for months, there was silence. But then, about a month ago, I saw a vision. Philip had posted a full-length 20-minute response video. And today, we're gonna have a look at that response. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Milo Rossi, and welcome to Philip Zeba Debunked Part 3. Hey Philip, thanks for tuning into the video. I want to address this video to you personally. You took the time to respond to me, and now I want to do the same for you. In my videos debunking you, I said that the only part you really needed to watch was my end call to action to you, but in this video, I implore you to watch the whole thing. Now Philip, before we get into this, I have a few things I want to talk about with my audience, so if you want to skip that, you can use your own personal little timestamp right here, go to that part of the video, and everything from that point out will be addressed directly to you. Okay, hello everyone, and welcome back. Firstly, I want to refamiliarize ourselves here with the first 2 videos on Philip Zeba. As a reminder, here's a list of Philip's topics that I debunked in those 2 videos.
All independently come up with the same allegedly fictitious anthropomorphic bird, built independently of each other, and all having identical structures that follow this similar step pattern. But even ancient maps painted Antarctica as green. This satellite footage from 2016 shows what could be a pyramid buried in the South Pole. This hill has virtually every characteristic of a real pyramid, and we continue to ignore it. Ancient lasers. The biggest one there is, which is said to have been built as a tomb for Khufu, despite it having 0 characteristics of actual Egyptian tombs, harnessing energy from inside the earth and transmitting it wirelessly around the world for free. The Giza power plant theory. Evidence of these giants is found all across the world, from the pyramids in Devil's Tower to these giant steps in Peru, the plain of Jars in Laos, Easter Island, Nam Nadal in Micronesia. This giant knife found underwater near the coast of Madagascar discovers an enormous opening in the icy surface. Him and his squadron fly into it. They're surrounded by a luscious green landscape, seeing giant creatures roaming around him, and he's brought to a shimmering rainbow city. He's surrounded by these flying disc-shaped objects that lead him to the ground, and he's brought to a tall being called the Master.
Firstly, I do recommend, if you have the time, to watch one of these videos again, or at least a part of it. It'll give you a refresher on what we're expecting Philip to respond to. Now, you may be wondering, how did Philip make a 20+ minute response video to this? After all, I used extensive evidence and sources to debunk the things he was saying. Did he do more research to refute my claims? Did he publish a paper? No, of course not. His response video barely talks about archaeology at all. In fact, he barely responds to almost anything that I said in these 2 videos. Instead, the entire response is a character defense, which is not entirely surprising, but it is kind of disappointing. Instead of refuting any of my evidence, he just brings up a bunch of talking points that I see used by the alternative facts crowd all the time. Everything from I'm entitled to my opinion to whining about cancel culture. Yeah, I know, aren't you guys excited? This is gonna just be fucking awesome. Now, I am all too aware that facts don't actually change the minds of the do-your-own-research crowd, so after being fact-checked, they will typically respond with an appeal to emotion, either by lashing out or becoming highly defensive. In the case of Philip Zeba, it's the latter. The silver lining here is that I now get a reason to talk about a bunch of anti-intellectual talking points that I see used all the time, but have never really had a platform to talk about to my broad audience. And I hope that by watching this video, I can put some tools in your toolbox to know how to handle them when you see them moving forward. Secondly, I want to remind everyone of something. I mentioned this in my videos on him, and I'm going to say it again. My videos are not grounds to give Philip any hate. You are welcome to give feedback, respond to things he actually says in videos, but you are not my attack dogs. I say this because on Philip Zeba's response video, there were were some pretty nasty comments from my fans. There were a lot of really good ones responding to actual things he said in the video, but I want to condemn the people who thought that that was an excuse for them to go and harass him. So again, I know that 99% of you are mature enough to know this, but I feel the need to say it out loud so there is no confusion. Also, in this video, I had to chop and rearrange Philip's video in order to be able to fit it in this already enormous time span. I did everything in my power to not strawman him, but obviously I had to cut some stuff out. If you want to watch my first reaction to this video and a lot more of Philip's points in order, you can check out my first reaction, which is on my second channel, which is up now, link in the description. And lastly, we hit 2 million subscribers. I was trying to think of what I wanted to do for a special, and I think I'm gonna do a Q&A. I haven't done a Q&A in a while. I think it could be kind of fun. Opportunity for you to ask me anything. Stuff about work, stuff about my life, stuff about me, you know, stuff about me. There's a Google form linked in the description of this video where you can submit your answers, and who knows, maybe I'll talk about them in my 2 million subscriber special. All right, guys, I'm gonna let Philip back in. Hey, Philip, welcome back. Firstly, Philip, I wanna thank you for your response. Getting a video like this made about you is not easy, and in the grand scheme of things, I think you took it like a champ. Despite the fact that I tried to lean into constructive criticism towards the end, I'm not all that surprised you took a defensive position. After all, good intention or not, I did kind of come after you. In my first couple of videos to you, I talk about the idea of a caricature, how creators will adopt a hyperbolic version of their personality that they use in front of the camera, which is why throughout the video, I tried to make a distinction between your caricature and you as a person. Now, in this video, I feel like you actually dropped your caricature a little bit, and I feel like I'm talking to you as a person. Because of that, I also want to try and drop my caricature for this video in an effort to actually have a productive dialogue here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the heat down, maybe even open a beer, and we're gonna move to a little bit more of a comfortable setting. Oh, man. You know, Philip, since we're just sitting here, me and you, the boys, if you will, I thought we could maybe, I could extend a little bit of an olive branch to entice you to actually stay through this video. If there was one major takeaway I had from watching your response, it was that I was actually right in my video by speculating that you live in Canada.
Firstly, I live in Canada.
Oh, he does live in Canada! So today, in your honor, Philip, I'm gonna be drinking this Moosehead Canadian Lager. I was thinking about actually going up to Canada and filming part of this video at a Tim Hortons, but I ended up not doing that because I just couldn't be fucked.
America runs on Duncan.
Fuck, I don't even know what cheers I'm gonna give you, Philip, to fucking good luck. All right, let's get this show on the road. Oh, god damn it. Philip, you've cursed me, you son of a Fucking Canadians and their telepathy. How do they do that shit? Jesus. When I heard that you made a response video, I was thrilled. I will admit, when I saw the thumbnail, my hopes and expectations were not exactly high. But it was mostly the thumbnail in the first like 2 minutes that had the petty stuff in it, and that's totally valid. I don't have time for a bunch of petty stuff in this video because this video is already long enough, so I decided that my petty response would be in the thumbnail for this video, so I hope you appreciate it. Before I actually watched your video, I checked out what the reception was in the comments, and it didn't look great. There was a lot of people saying that you were highly defensive, that you don't address any of the points that I actually made, and some people even saying that it didn't seem like you watched my videos at all. Now, I knew I wanted to respond to this video of yours, but I also wanted to give you a fair chance to defend yourself. I know what it's like to do a hasty response and then kind of regret it later. So I left this comment giving you an opportunity to reflect on your video, change something you wanted, and re-upload it in a way that you want to represent you. And I even gave you 6 days of wiggle room to do it. This was your response. So just a reminder before we start talking about this, that you locked in this answer. My initial notes, Philip, are that I'm a bit disappointed. You seem to have entirely missed the point of my video, which is that spreading misinformation and lies under the guise of free thinking and research is an incredibly irresponsible way to use a platform of more than 1.5 million. You really don't address any of the points that I bring up in my video. None of the research, none of the topics, you barely even talk about archaeology. You don't even acknowledge the fact that I was able to prove the things you are saying are false for nearly 4 hours straight. Instead, you ended up taking a defensive position, somehow doubling down and backpedaling at the same time. You proved to me that facts and research won't actually change what your beliefs are, and so you move the goalposts out of the field of doing your own research and into the field of logic and debate. Now, Philip, I'm not a philosopher, I'm a scientist, but if speech and debate is the field you want to fight on, I will happily meet you here as well. So with all the talking out of the way, I'm gonna skip over the first petty sort of 2 minutes of your video, and let's get right into the meat of it.
First of all, let me debunk him for a change, because ironically, a lot of things have been said about me and my platform that are just blatantly not true.
Yo, Philip, did you copy my setup, bro? Come on. Dude, this is just unbelievable. I can't with this fucking guy. Okay, Philip, I'm fucking with you. But as a show of good faith, I do want to start here. The last thing I want is for you to feel like you were misrepresented in my video, so by all means, set the record straight. All right, Philip, before we actually get into this thing, I think we need some stakes. So here's the deal I'm gonna make with you. If your response is mature and well thought out and addresses the points I'm making to you, I will keep this couch as a permanent fixture in my studio. But if your response is dismissive, immature, and doesn't address a single point I'm trying to make, I will throw this couch out of my studio's second-story window. Make sure to stick around till the end to see why I throw a couch out a window. You guys know the Google Debunkers hoodie already, okay? It's in the description. I'm not gonna keep wearing this. It's too fucking hot. Right onto the floor. You know what? Honestly, I feel like in the nature of this video, I should wear my hat like this. Oh, fuck. I look like I'd be on the news.
We do have his description. Can we take that? Let's take his description.
Personally, I live in Canada.
Although I do have a weird hunch that you're Canadian. He lives in Canada.
When my channel was analyzed, this false narrative of me being this good-hearted guy who only ever talked about science and space and history that slowly turned to the dark side of conspiracy theories and misinformation for profit and clout is just not true.
Okay. I hear that. Philip, that's not exactly what I said. I acknowledge that you have always been interested in these things. That was the thesis at the end of my video. I played the first video you ever made, the one where you talk about how we are made of stardust, because I think it's a great example of science communication. Well, you really start talking about archaeological conspiracies, the ones that I particularly focused on a little bit later in your channel. I know that you had talked about conspiracies almost from the get-go. So while I did use an early example of you talking about actual science, I don't know if I would call this false narrative as much as I would call it giving you the benefit of the doubt. I also don't know if it's too much of a defense here to say, whoa, guys, you're giving me way too much credit. I've always been spreading misinformation. Now, jabs aside, if you do genuinely feel like I misrepresented you here by somehow saying that you kind of sold out and became someone who only talked about conspiracies, then I apologize. That was not my intent. I did my best to make that clear at the conclusion of my video, where I talk about actual good science communication that you have done and encourage you to continue doing more like it, which is why I used that video and this video to make an appeal to you instead of just condemning you. In fact, you actually make the same point that I was making.
They're all topics that I'm genuinely passionate and just love talking about, not something that I pretend to like for views.
Philip, I totally see that. In fact, I literally said almost exactly that in my video. I can tell that you are actually interested in all the topics that you talk about here. You are interested in ancient history, you're interested in space and science and the mysteries of the universe. I don't think that you are pretending to be interested in conspiracy theories for views. At the beginning, I speculated whether or not views or money could be a factor, but my conclusion had literally nothing to do with this speculation. I did my best at the end to acknowledge your genuine motive and passion by having a look at some of your good science communication videos. If you feel like I didn't make this point clear enough either, then I apologize for that as well. It was also not my intent. But my early speculation into whether or not views were a factor were a footnote in my overarching thesis that you are spreading conspiracy theories and misinformation, and that is incredibly irresponsible. It doesn't matter if you are making your conspiracy videos because of money or because of views or just because you're interested. The fact remains that you're making videos where you peddle conspiracy theories as if they were fact, and they get a disproportionate amount of views to everything else that you make. While your motives would certainly affect how harsh I am being, it doesn't change the fact that one way or another, millions of people are now walking away from your videos with misinformation that they learned from you.
Less than 40% of my videos of the past few months have been these controversial conspiracy topics.
And Philip, I don't really care what the ratio is. I'm glad you make videos about actual science, but I'm not going to give you some like bonus points for that. It's the fact that you make these science videos that's the very reason I'm trying to get through to you, because I can tell that you at least somewhat care about fact and truth. If all you made was conspiracy videos, I wouldn't be very confident that I could apply to your reason. You need to make clear to people that when you are talking about things like the Egyptian power plants or the Bosnian pyramids, they are not just fun facts, they are widely disproven conspiracy theories. That is not just my opinion. Again, I researched all of these points extensively. The sources are in my videos. But when I researched all the same topics that you claim to have researched, I was able to easily disprove almost every single word you said, which got me wondering, how do you do your research? Hearing someone boast about how they do their own research right before saying something that is profoundly wrong is nothing new to me, but it always makes me wonder, what kind of research are they talking about? Thankfully, Philip enlightens us as to his research process.
This might be hard to believe for some people, but research for conspiracy videos takes much longer than it does for regular science videos. In fact, no one's probably gonna believe me, but my conspiracy videos take on average about 10 times longer to research than my regular science fact videos. That's a fact. My famous Stardust video, which I love that theory, by the way, I shit you not, took me less than 5 minutes to research, and then I just kind of spoke what I learned about. Done. Nothing wrong with that, it's just how it went. Other videos of a similar length, but a more controversial nature, say my long-lost 8th continent of Mew video, took a minimum of about 2 hours just to research and script. Finding information on them usually takes a bit of deep digging. Much deeper than I'd have to do for like a regular space video, which would require nothing more than a surface-level Google search.
Oh boy. Philip, I believe you when you say that your science videos are easier to research. Now, some will argue whether or not that's a good or a bad thing, but one of the reasons these topics are easier to research is because there's actual evidence for it. You take for granted the fact you can open fucking Wikipedia and learn everything there is to know about star formation because of the work of diligent scientists. And don't get me wrong, I encountered this too with my shorts. When I talk about the Wrangel Island mammoths, I'm not going to read 3 scientific papers to try and condense it into 60 seconds. I can use multiple shorter sources, cross-referenced between one another, and get reliable information I can fit into the 60 seconds and probably do it all in less than an hour. But if I was doing a longer video on the Wrangel Island mammoths, I would go into much more research because I'd actually have the time to talk about all of it. But I want to take a look at the claim that it takes you 2 hours to research the conspiracy theory videos, because that makes me wonder to myself, what kind of research are you doing? In my videos on you, I research the exact same topics that you claim to have researched. Let's take the Bosnian pyramids, for example. I pushed this one really hard in my video on you because I think it is the worst thing you have ever created. In this couple-minute video, you talk about the Bosnian pyramid conspiracy theory as if it were fact. In doing so, you belittle and vilify actual archaeologists and scientists who have studied the site. You fail to provide any of the mountain of evidence that it is not a pyramid. You validate and applaud the con man who opened it and is now raking in millions of dollars, including from the government, by doing so missing an opportunity to talk about Bosnia's actual national heritage, which is in a museum that is still in ruins after a fucking war. And to cap it all off, this video of yours has more than 30 million views. You promoted what could be considered an actual government conspiracy theory run by a business con man to 30 million people. To try and undo some of the damage you did with this, Philip, I had to research the exact same topic as well. And in my 2 hours, hell, in my first 30 minutes of research, I was not only able to find sparse evidence supporting any of the things you're saying, but literal mountains of evidence proving that what you are saying is wrong. And Philip, this is the case for every single other pseudo-archaeology topic of yours that I discussed across both of my videos. I have a hard time believing you didn't stumble across some of the loads of evidence that all of these theories have against them in your 2 hours of research. Now, this puts you in a bit of a tricky situation. My gut response is that you aren't actually doing 2 hours of research, but I want to give you the benefit of the doubt. If you are actually doing these 2 hours of research, I see 2 explanations for how you are failing to mention any of this important information. 1, you're cherry-picking sources. You see things that go against the research that you're doing and then just don't read them, which is not only not good research, but also academic dishonesty. The worst option is that in these 2 hours of research, you are reading the same sources that I am and then just not telling your audience, which is not only academic dishonesty, but a lie of omission. Both of these are pretty bad, and I don't know which one's more likely, but I actually have a third option that I'd be willing to put money on. The only other explanation I can think of for how you don't present any of the evidence against the things you are saying is that your 2 hours of research is listening to a fucking podcast or something, which is, and I cannot stress this enough, not fucking research. Spending 2 hours listening to Randall Carlson or Terrence Howard blabber on Joe Rogan is not even close to fucking research. Research is learning about a topic by pulling from multiple independent sources, cross-checking them amongst one another, and being able to draw a conclusion from it. I think that the anti-intellectualism peddled by conspiracy theory YouTube channels and podcasts are your pitfall. And that's not just me speculating. You actually give me pretty good reason to believe that this is the case in just a few minutes. So, to summarize, if you are doing actual research, you are admitting to leaving out information that you would have to be aware of if you even did a surface-level dive into any of these topics, and by proxy, lying to your audience. And if you aren't doing this, then you're admitting that you think that listening to the Joe Rogan Experience counts as academic research. Now again, these options are just speculation, but regardless of how much you defend your research process, the fact still remains that I was able to prove that the things you are saying are false, and you have not addressed it. So maybe, Philip, in the future, a little Google debunking would go a long way. In this video, you seem to try and logic your way out of the facts that I brought up. As much as I genuinely hate to do this, you kind of leave me no choice but to talk about logical fallacies. A Fallacy is when someone uses a piece of faulty reasoning to try and make an argument sound more valid. Fallacies are something that everyone can fall into. I have fallen into them, and I will again. This is because they are almost human second nature. You almost have to train your brain to not fall into the trap of fallacies. Because of this, I typically don't harp on fallacies all that often, because I think it's kind of a cheap shot, and debasing an argument based on the fact that it contains a fallacy is actually a fallacy called the fallacy fallacy. That being said, if an argument sucks and is completely full of fallacies, I am absolutely going to bring it up. And Philip, since you didn't actually address any of the points that I made and went on the defensive, you wandered straight into a fallacy minefield. You claim to be a supporter of facts and logic, but facts don't really seem to have been doing it for you, so I'm gonna appeal to your logic instead. Let's start with one that I just brought up, the cherry-picking fallacy. Drink for every fallacy in Phil's response video. The cherry-picking fallacy is when you only gather sources that support the thing you're trying to say. Whether your source is podcasts, YouTube videos, or actual research, there's clearly some cherry-picking going on here, Philip. Okay, with that example out of the way, let's get into some of the big ones.
Everyone needs to know that these are just theories. They may or may not be true. Hell, the same could even be said about my regular fact videos. The idea that you are Stardust is technically just a theory.
Firstly, yes, Philip, these are just theories and everyone needs to know that they may or may not be true. And you are not communicating that to your audience. That's what I'm talking about here, Jesus. But let's talk about this one, because I love this one. Hey, this whole Stardust thing is just a theory as well. This is a classic argument used by science deniers and anti-intellectuals to debase well-proven and well-supported scientific theories because they're just theories. It's something used to belittle actual scientific research in order to make conspiracy and speculation seem more plausible and valid. It is also a false equivalency fallacy. The false equivalency fallacy is like saying that apples and tomatoes are the same thing because they're a fruit. They are, in fact, both fruit, but I wouldn't put a tomato in a fucking fruit salad. Claiming that a well-supported, peer-reviewed scientific theory is equivalent to the theory that Admiral Byrd flew into the hollow earth based on a book written in Comic fucking Sans is so ridiculous, I have a hard time believing you even think that.
I found it. This is the book he was talking about. Look at that. Real fucking reliable source here, Phil. Wow. Doing your own research. The only academic sources I trust are ones that have 4 exclamation points after each other.
This is also a bit of the faulty analogy fallacy. Claiming that two things are alike because of one similarity. Claiming that these two things have even close to the same amount of credibility based on the fact that they are both just theories is absolutely ridiculous.
We may currently have more evidence that supports it, which is why we accept it as a fact, but we also might gain new knowledge, say 100 years from now, that proves it to be wrong.
Another classic anti-intellectualism talking point. Well, science has been wrong before. This is a variation of the continuum fallacy. An argument that states that two different conditions cannot be different because between them there exists a whole spectrum of conditions. When someone uses this line of reasoning, it illustrates to me that they are at least partly ignorant to how science actually operates. It is very likely that something like star formation will be better understood and refined as we have better tools and technology in the future. But it's all building off of pre-existing evidence and research. Rarely is science as binary as it's right or it's wrong. That just isn't how this works. If the Stardust theory was proven wrong in Philip's eyes, it probably wouldn't actually mean that it's wrong. Rather, it's been refined, developed, and improved in order to incorporate new evidence. This could also be the faulty generalization fallacy, where a conclusion is drawn about many things based on one example. This is like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Just because scientific theories are open to being refined, understood, developed, and changed does not mean it makes sense to look at all of them as if they will be proven wrong, especially when you're using this as justification to talk about the Bosnian pyramids as if they were fact, because they're both just theories. I was doing some work with none other than the Flint Dibble back a few weeks ago, and he used an excellent analogy. Have you ever taken a high-level math class? Because I absolutely have not. If there's one thing in this world that I absolutely suck at, it is math. But I have been told that in high-level math classes, you can get points on a question that you got wrong because you got a lot of the formula correct. Let's say that there's a math problem with 10 steps to solve. You get 1 point for every step you get correct for a grand total of 10 points. I'm gonna play devil's advocate and say that the Stardust theory isn't entirely correct, but it would probably get like 8 points. Even though the end could be refined, the fundamentals are there, and there's room for improvement. Thus is the nature of science. The Bosnian pyramid theory, on the other hand, is like showing up to the exam pissed drunk, vomiting on the test, and turning it in anyway. And you are implying that both of these tests should be taken equally seriously because neither of them got the final equation correct.
Which is why I talk about both factual scientific topics and controversial mysterious theories.
Yes, and you talk about them interchangeably. That's the problem here. You make very clear here that you know the distinction between the fact videos and the conspiracy videos, but you seem to make almost no effort to make this distinction clear to your audience. And I'm sorry, but assuming that people are going to be able to tell the difference on their own isn't good enough. Whether you like it or not, having a large audience alone makes people view you as an authority figure. You have over 1.5 million followers, Philip. People will listen to the things you say. You have a responsibility to your audience that when you talk about these conspiracy theories, you make clear that they have been widely, scientifically disproven.
Say we banish the crazy, evil Giza power plant theory from ever being discussed, and 1,000 years from now we, I don't know, build a time machine that allows us to prove with a higher degree of certainty that maybe a part of that theory was true. We'll look back at the last 1,000 years and be like, oh gee, we sure lost a lot of progress on learning from that theory when we banned it from being discussed back in 2024.
Wait, I'm sorry, who's saying we banned this from being discussed? If I'm remembering correctly, I was actually interested in that theory. In fact, I actually bought this very book for that video and said I was going to read it. Now, I wouldn't expect you to know that because I don't think you actually watched my videos, but if you did, you would see how funny it is that you use this as an example of something that I'm trying to silence. I literally gave the author of this book money, something I am not encouraging anyone else to do, by the way. Do as I say, not as I do. Also, if we did invent a time machine, go back and look at the pyramid and figure out it was a power plant, then that would be actual scientific evidence. Right now, there's just really no evidence for it, so why are we going to treat it as if there is? This is further proof that you aren't really grasping how science works. If we were to make a time machine, go back and see the pyramid being a power plant, it would be evidence and data that would change our beliefs. Not, well, fuck, science was wrong again. But the big point here is that, Philip, nowhere did I call on you to stop talking about this stuff or tell my audience to silence you. In fact, I did the complete opposite. I made very clear in my video that I want you to improve your craft and your content, and I encouraged my audience to support you as you make this transition. By saying, can you believe that this guy is trying to silence me? Which I explicitly did not do, you are shirking away from acknowledging my point yet again that you are using your platform to spread misinformation to millions of people. This is not about you being silenced, Philip, and you know that. But that didn't stop you from spending a huge amount of this video pissing and moaning about being canceled. Philip, your video starts like this. Now, I kind of thought that you were going to take this approach, actually, which is why I started my video like this. I want you to know that my thesis here isn't, fuck you, get off the internet. I had a little sneaking suspicion that you might be the kind of person who might respond to genuine criticism with crying about being canceled. So I made sure to account for that in my video in order to get out ahead of you. Would have worked great if you watched it. But to make explicitly clear to you, Philip, one more time, you are not being canceled. You ain't fucking Diddy or Jeffree Star or Chris Brown, okay? You haven't committed some mortal fucking sin here. I am simply asking you to take responsibility for the things you are saying to millions of people.
Some people only like the science stuff. Others, like me, enjoy both. And others absolutely despise thought-provoking conspiracies. And there's nothing wrong with that. But does that mean we should silence and censor those ideas from ever being spoken? Of course not.
Of course not. That's why that's not what I'm asking of you. But you're using that language again. Others absolutely despise thought-provoking conspiracy theories because that is a definist fallacy. A fallacy that involves the definition of one thing in regards to another. I am not arguing against you talking about thought-provoking conspiracy theories. I am arguing against you spreading easily researchable and disproven misinformation to millions of people. I encouraged you to continue talking about mysteries and theories that fascinate you, but more responsibly. But the way that you phrase this makes it sound like what I am asking from you is irrational. But it really isn't. I am literally just comparing the words coming out of your mouth to actual facts. I promise you, Philip, you're not a victim here.
You can dislike the video, comment saying you don't like it or that I'm stupid, or even make a 3-hour feature debunking it with evidence. In fact, I support that as it is the basis of free speech.
Okay, Philip, I don't think you're stupid. I really do not. I know I pulled some petty insults on you in this video, but that's part of the caricature. I don't actually think you are stupid as a person. That's why I'm taking the time to make this video. You claim to research theories. I did the same thing. I went over all of the things you said. I linked my sources, disproving them, and even gave you pointers on how to improve your channel. Because I am trying to hold you to the same standards to which you claim to hold yourself. I'm trying to give you an actual opportunity here to refine your craft and improve your channel, and this is how you respond with whining about being canceled? Come on, dude, it's just cringe.
What I do have a problem with is shaming anyone who openly discuss these ideas, influencing their audience into calling those people to stop talking about these ideas and strong-arming them into self-censorship because you don't agree with them.
Okay, firstly, I addressed my audience at the beginning of this video and the other one, telling them to not use this as grounds to harass you. I understand I can't control them all, but for any of them that did, I apologize on their behalf. They do not represent me or my audience. But the point I really want to look into is that last bit. Because you don't agree with them. When I critique you on the Bosnian pyramids or the Egyptian power plant or the Smithsonian destroying giant skeletons, it's not because I disagree with you. It's because the things you are saying are factually incorrect. I don't demand that you have experience or a degree in this field, but I do expect that you hold yourself to a high bar as you seemingly accept the responsibility of being viewed as an authority figure. Philip, it's not a very good look when you disregard academic research and honesty, end up spreading misinformation to millions, and when you are held to your own standards of research, you claim that I am trying to strong-arm you into silence because I disagree with you.
There's this strange movement online that villainizes anyone that talks about these mysteries, calling them racists and bigots or just liars and frauds. And I've had a taste of it all. So much that other people are now scared to even talk about these theories out of fear of being ostracized and ridiculed.
Wow, Philip. This comment with no likes called you racist? You really are oppressed. Phil, I can't believe you brought this up, but I guess we have to talk about this now. I don't think you're racist. I don't think I called you racist, and to the best of my knowledge, I never even implied that you're racist. Believe me, Philip, if I thought you were racist, you'd fucking know. When I talk about racism in these contexts, it's because many pseudo-archaeological theories have roots in racism. This obviously does not mean that the people who are interested in these theories are racists, but having batted in this space for a while, I can say that racists can be drawn to these theories because they support their pre-existing abhorrent worldview. So instead of crying wolf about me calling you a racist, why don't you use this as an opportunity to reflect on how some of the theories you talk about have roots in racism, and fight tooth and nail against racism within the alternative history community. This is a group that you are part of, Philip, and as someone who I don't think is racist, you should be jumping at the opportunity to weed racists out of your community and make it a place that is unwelcome for them. Trust me, as someone that studies archaeology and anthropology, there's a lot of racism in our roots, and I talk about it every chance I fucking get, because it is our obligation to learn from history so that we don't repeat it.
And this might be hard for some people to hear, but labeling ideas you don't agree with as factually incorrect or misinformation that damages society are not valid reasons to guilt people into self-censorship. You can call them out on it, make a debunking video on them, but shaming someone from talking about certain ideas is a very dangerous road, my friend.
Labeling ideas you don't agree with as factually incorrect or dangerous misinformation that damages society are not valid reasons to guilt people into self-censorship. Jesus Christ, Philip. Firstly, I sound like a broken record, but I'm not guilting you into self-censorship. Secondly, these are not ideas I disagree with you on. They are researchable and provable facts. And thirdly, saying things that are factually incorrect or misinformation that damages society are absolutely reasons to be criticized. You even acknowledge this by saying, you can make a debunking video. But instead of just acknowledging that that is what happened, it was an appropriate response, and accepting responsibility for your actions, you blow it out of proportion by saying that what I was actually trying to do was silence you and doubling down. I know that you were being hyperbolic, but you literally referred to your own theories as factually incorrect and misinformation that damages society. Acknowledge that my response was reasonable and still missed the opportunity for reflection and growth. I'm almost impressed.
There are huge podcasts and influencers that talk about the very same theories that I discuss.
Yes, Philip, there are. And I really appreciate you bringing this up, because it's helping me understand what you mean when you say that you do 2 hours of research.
Sean Ryan, Flagrant, Danny Jones, Jimmy Corsetti, everyone's favorite Graham Hancock, Billy Carson, The Y-Files, Randall Carlson, Uncharted X. Many of these platforms almost solely talk about these controversial topics.
Oh, Philip. Ugh. You really fucked yourself with this one. I see what you're trying to do here. They're doing it, so why can't I do it? Or, if you're trying to silence me, are you saying we should also try and silence them? Citing someone famous who agrees with you, despite not being qualified either, instead of actually addressing the points that I am making, is the appeal to authority fallacy. Salud, moose man. You admit in this video that you just say other people's theories, and there is nothing wrong with that. But you are taking these people at their word on the basis of you trusting them. Not very free thinker of you, Philip. Also, Philip, look at this list. Do you not see the irony here, man? These are not scientists. These are not peer-reviewed journals who are dedicated to academic honesty. These are not grad students working on a thesis or esteemed doctors with published papers and years of experience. Well, you accidentally kind of showed me your hand here, Philip. I think this is your research. They convinced you that doing your own research and keeping an open mind means listening to the same 5 podcasts and watching the same 10 YouTube channels, all of which regurgitate the same bullshit over and over again, leading to an echo chamber that is as anti-scientific as you can possibly get. Science is supposed to be in constant disagreement. That's how science develops. And those that don't think that that's the case have never operated in a scientific space. I'm moving on to a different drink now. I'm so pissed off. Do I have a straw? No. Do I give a shit? Yeah, actually a little bit. I'm gonna be totally honest, Philip. It was around this point in the video that I actually felt an immense sympathy for the position you're in, because you fell right into this honeypot. You drank the Kool-Aid. You trusted them because they have a lot of listeners or subscribers, and because they tickle that little part of your brain, as you say. But that little tickle was them lobotomizing you. They convinced you that listening to this fucking circle jerk is somehow equivalent to doing actual research, that all the scientists are lying to you, and that fucking Billy Carson figured it out.
But right above that, you see those shadows of those pyramid structures? Okay, do you see?
Yeah, those things.
Okay, yeah.
Those
Now-
are superimposed, right? Like,
No, those are shadows.
but look, those are the same things that are in the bottom. Aren't
Right.
they just pointing at something? Aren't those pointers?
The irony here is that you are a victim of the exact same cycle that I am asking you to try and break. This is the blind being led by the blind being led by the fucking brain dead, and Philip, now you are on the conga line. You have gleaned an insurmountable amount of bullshit from these sources, called it research, and regurgitated it to your highly impressionable audience. This is why I'm making an appeal to you, Philip, not because I think you are corrupted by pseudoscience, but because I know that you are interested in this stuff, and it seems to me like your trust was taken advantage of.
Hell, the biggest podcast in the world, the Joe Rogan Experience, has an arguably similar structure as my platform. Sometimes he's got leading experts in science, technology, politics, medicine, physics that talk about their ideas, and other times he's got the fringe theorists that talk about theirs. I enjoy both.
You know, I actually agree with you on that, Philip. You and Joe Rogan are quite similar. But before you take that as a compliment, let me explain. You are both genuinely interested in the things you talk about and are excellent at connecting with your audiences. But the problem with him is the same problem that I have with you. He also talks about science and fringe theories, but does so interchangeably. It blows my mind that he can have someone like Neil deGrasse Tyson and then have someone like Terrence Howard who doesn't know his ass from a fucking hole in the ground. By the way, if you haven't watched it already, you should go check out Professor Dave Explains video on Terrence Howard. It's fucking hilarious. He's got a good one on Billy Carson too. And Philip, let me tell you personally that if you thought I went a little bit harsh on you, you should be really fucking grateful that I got to you before Professor Dave did. By talking with scientists and pseudoscientists interchangeably, it dilutes what actual scientific research means. And it tricks people into thinking that some bullshit peddled by a guy with his name on the front of a book is equivalent to actual scientific research.
Does that mean JRE needs to be canceled, silenced, or at least Joe needs to stop bringing on guests that talk about these fringe theories? No, it's a style of content that has an audience. If it's not for you, don't watch it.
Oh, Philip, that's a bullshit argument. And it's a logical fallacy. The I'm entitled to my opinion fallacy. Got me spilling beer on my shirt. Jesus. I gotta wash that down with some London Fog. Just the way I like it. With no straw. The I'm entitled to my own opinion fallacy occurs when someone dismisses an entire point by saying that they're entitled to their own opinion. I'm sure we've all heard this one a fuck ton. Oh, you don't like what I have to say, liberal? Well then don't listen. This is just a tactic to deflect from actually having to address the point that someone is making. It's the same thing as when someone says something really fucking douchey and when they're called out, they're like, dude, I'm just making a joke. Shut the fuck up and accept some responsibility. Put some big boy pants on. Philip, that's not to you, but I just hear that one every once in a while and it makes me want to knock someone the fuck out. I also personally probably wouldn't call for Joe Rogan to be canceled, but I would probably say to him the same thing that I'm saying to you. You have an obligation to not use your immense platform to spoon-feed misinformation and lies wrapped in a veil of pseudo-intellectual bullshit to your massive and highly impressionable audience.
Should we then be trying to silence platforms like these from having a voice on the internet, telling them they should be ashamed for spreading or coming up with the same ideas I talk about? That's insane.
That is insane, Philip. Good thing that's not what I'm saying. I mean, hell, if these idiots got off the internet, I'd be out of a job. It is crazy to me that being fact-checked is synonymous with being silenced for these people. These cancel culture arguments can be broadly classed as an appeal to emotion. Occurs when someone dismisses an argument based on emotion rather than appealing to any actual facts. Why should I present facts to appeal to the research you just did when I could just say that this is all about the First Amendment or whatever the fuck you have in Canada, maple syrup something. Fuck, I don't know, man. That being said, it's also unreasonable for these people to not expect getting pushback on the things they say. Pretty much every single person that you have put up on the screen, including yourself, is someone who throws rocks in glass houses. The amount of hyper-defensive tweets and lashing out I have seen from any one of these people against actual scientists who have researched the shit they're talking about is fucking astronomical. And it is fucking hilarious seeing that coming from people who claim to be doing research and caring about facts. Why do you discredit and distrust all of the claims made by scientists using the scientific method when you claim to be using the scientific method and cry about cancel culture when you are held to the standards of the scientific method?
Galileo was literally hunted down for suggesting the world is round, likely being called a conspiracy theorist or the 17th century equivalent, a heretic, for even suggesting that. But he stuck to his guns, and even though he died while under house arrest for these claims, his theories eventually turned out to be the ones that we consider to be true.
Okay, Philip, putting aside the fact that Philip did not discover that the Earth was round, he discovered heliocentrism, that the Earth revolves around the sun. Probably could have Google debunked that one before you said it, but I'll let it slide. And putting aside the fact that what it sounds like you're doing here is comparing yourself and these people to fucking Galileo, this is an example that is used all the time by the alternative facts crowd. Galileo was a scientist. He found evidence for something, conducted research, and was able to develop a hypothesis and an ultimate conclusion. This is how science works. It focuses on taking what is known, asking questions, conducting research and experiments, and drawing conclusions based on their findings and repeating. Galileo was persecuted by the Catholic Church, to whom geocentrism was part of their worldview. They started with a conclusion and worked backwards, where any evidence and discussion around it was shot down. That is pseudoscience, Philip. These theorists that you talk about all believe in a myriad of different things, but all of them work from a conclusion and go backwards. Science works from the known to the unknown, not vice versa. Science works by developing a conclusion when presented with actual evidence. If the evidence presented does not change the conclusion, the evidence wasn't very good. This example you just used is one where a scientist was persecuted and ultimately died at the hands of pseudoscience who refused to be questioned.
Which I know a lot of people are gonna say, oh, it's because he was being persecuted by the church, who was deliberately suppressing information to preserve their power, and we don't abide by that model anymore. That's so cute. It's a good thing there isn't an ultra-wealthy group of people in power that would do the same thing today.
Philip, that's an anti-Semitic dog whistle. Just thought you'd want to be aware of that. Future reference.
And listen, these conspiracies and mysteries exist and will continue to exist on the beautiful and free-thinking tool we have as the internet. Unless governments and big tech get more and more involved, suppressing certain thoughts from being discussed online, which I sincerely hope you do not support.
The slippery slope fallacy. Instead of addressing the point, addressing a theorized chain reaction of events that will lead to some terrible outcome. This guy made a YouTube video fact-checking me. This could lead to widespread press censorship and freedom of speech suppression.
When we suppress or silence these fringe ideas from ever being spoken, it actually delays progression and future discoveries from being made. Crazy controversial mysteries and theories don't need to be this big evil thing that we need to silence at all costs.
I completely agree with you here, Philip. People willing to push the boundaries of the status quo have come to some incredible scientific discoveries. Galileo is a great example. This is why I approached what you said as scientific theories and fact-checked them as I would with any other scientific theory. You just have no follow-through here. Merely challenging the status quo is not worthy of praise. You have to be able to do research, listen to opposition, and change your views when presented with new evidence. There's a big difference between questioning the scientific status quo and coming up with a random, half-baked conclusion and lashing out at anyone that criticizes you.
Why don't we focus on dismantling actual harmful misinformation, like—
Yes, Philip, thank you. I bring bring this up in my video on you, and I asked the same question. Why don't we focus on the real problems? Because our country's got some real fucking problems, man. We got politicians financially invested in corporations, skyrocketing homelessness and house prices, minimum wage that can't even put fucking food on the table, relic laws from the failed war on drugs that disproportionately affect minority populations. Oh, and speaking of the failed war on drugs, how about the prison system? Or money that could be spent on American citizens being used to vaporize children thousands of miles away? Or how about oil empires buying American farmland? The list just goes fucking on and on. Go off, dude. Let's focus on the real stuff.
I don't know, governments forcing everyone to inject themselves with experimental chemicals that later turn out to have adverse health effects or something like that. It's a good thing that hasn't happened yet, because that would be terrifying.
Philip, how? I cannot believe that in a video where you are responding to being fact-checked about conspiracy theories, you unprompted bring up a vaccine conspiracy theory. I am actually at a fucking loss for this. This is just madness. Philip, I'd like to remind you one more time before we get into this part that I gave you a chance. I gave you a chance to review this video and make something that you felt like represented you more. Something that wasn't hasty and something that was well thought out and well researched. Your response to that was this. So in light of that response, Philip, I'm gonna show you why they pay me the fucking big bucks. You ready for this? Have a look at the article you used, Philip. Do you notice anything weird about that? Why don't we read what the title is? CDC study reveals COVID vaccines linked to 111,795% increase in brain clots. Now, being a guy who does a ton of research like you, I'm sure that you looked into this extensively and were able to, cross-check and peer review it. Right? I mean, after all, on there it does say that it was fact-checked by the People's Voice community. The People's Voice community? I wonder what that is. But you have to have looked into this yourself, right, Philip? Because you do so much research. I would like to remind you one more time, Philip, that you doubled down on this video response. The People's Voice website is a satirical fake news website. Philip, I am doing my best to keep a level head here, but I genuinely cannot fucking believe this. I don't know what you were thinking here or if you were thinking here, but I doubt it. This is fucking embarrassing. I am trying to give you the benefit of the doubt, to give you a second chance now to improve your craft and refine what you do. And you have the balls to not only peddle a COVID vaccine conspiracy unprompted, but back it up with a source from a fake news website. Philip, maybe I'm a little bit too forgiving, but I still want to give you a chance to turn your channel around. But I can no longer speak for my audience, because if anyone can see you pull a stunt like that and not be able to forgive you, I don't blame them at all. I could literally talk about this for fucking hours, but we're gonna just move past it. So instead, I will say, Philip, from me personally to you personally, step it the fuck up.
Or even something like Coca-Cola funding scientific studies that conclude Coke has no link to diabetes. That is actual harmful misinformation that can literally result in the deaths of thousands.
Really? In the same breath that you unprompted peddled a conspiracy about a pandemic that led to the death of millions? Give me a fucking break, Philip.
But no, let's instead label harmless, thought-provoking archaeological mysteries about the pyramids as evil misinformation.
You're really fucking pushing my buttons here, dude. But you are actually illustrating an important point. The pyramid conspiracies on their own aren't what's dangerous. It's the top of a pipeline. Once you have abandoned the ability to change your beliefs based on facts, you are open to more and more dangerous conspiracy theories. You just proved my point that this isn't me just making some slippery slope fallacy. You, to some extent, believe and have peddled these pyramid conspiracies and just peddled an actual dangerous conspiracy. This is why I do what I do, Philip. It isn't about pyramids or fucking giants. It is about what is true and what is false. Philip, if I may give a bit of a shameless plug, I actually did a whole talk on pseudoarchaeology and the pseudoscience pipeline at Virginia Tech, and I recorded the entire thing and put it on YouTube. I really genuinely think you should check it out. Not only do I think that you would actually find some of the information in it useful as you begin to transition away from peddling conspiracy theories, but also you're featured in it, so that's kind of fun. Anyway, speaking of science, Philip, why don't you tell us a little bit about the scientific method? Oh no, I turned into a cat.
Schminky. Ooh, schminky.
Let me fuck with you. Can you move? I need to sit there.
But you're right, we eventually adopted what we now know as the scientific method, which is the basis of what we use today to determine what is a fact and what isn't. Which I agree is the best model we currently have available, but it doesn't mean that certain people aren't going to find ways to abuse it for their own benefit.
Some jokes just write themselves. I wonder what kind of people would ignore the scientific method but use the term anyway to make themselves look good, and as a result abuse it for their own benefit. Philip, here you bring up that you both understand the scientific method and say that it is the best system we have found for uncovering the truth, despite illustrating through this entire video that you have a blatant disregard for it and that you are incapable of acknowledging when you are being held to its standards. Your words here don't mean anything, Philip, because they are not backed up by your actions.
Trillion-dollar companies have literally been caught and admitted to faking scientific studies, which we commonly claim to be the ultimate holy grail of truth for their own benefit.
Yes, Philip, and they were caught. For someone who claims to know so much about the scientific method, I would assume you know about peer review, that in order for a conclusion to be supported, the experiment or test needs to be able to be replicated multiple times by multiple independent sources and get the same or similar result. This helps to weed out conclusions that are biased or have been paid off. Of course, people can and will take advantage of this and every system, especially corporations, because corporations are the fucking devil. So what we do as scientists is make sure that corporations have as little leverage in the scientific space as possible and fight against biased research at every turn instead of just saying, oh, someone got paid off once, I guess we can't trust science now. This is just a profoundly dismissive point that still does not address anything that I'm saying to you.
And this idea that we need to be open to the ever-changing, malleable nature of what's considered a fact and what's a conspiracy pisses a lot of people off. Especially academics, professors, students, career archaeologists have been so accustomed to the scientific method of determining truth their entire lives that anything that doesn't fit inside of it is without a doubt totally false.
This pisses a lot of people off, says the guy who's whining about my beer isn't down there. Says the guy who's whining about cancel culture because I fucking fact-checked him. Also, leave my boy Flynn out of this, Philip. Come on now. The big point here, Philip, is that this just doesn't make sense. They are so accustomed to the scientific method that anything that doesn't fit inside it is false. Philip, everything fits into the scientific method. Based on your actions in this video, I have developed a hypothesis. My hypothesis is that there's a family of elves living in your HVAC system and they're slowly pumping nitrous oxide into your living room. It is, of course, a ridiculous hypothesis, but it could still be tested with the scientific method. I applied the scientific method to the theories that you stated and found that they were false. That doesn't mean that they are somehow beyond the understanding of the scientific method, or that researchers are just too hidebound to understand what we're talking about. It means that with the evidence we currently have, they are false. This is just you vilifying science and scientists based on your understanding of science that you learned from pseudoscientists.
Which, in their defense, they should be. Science has brought incredible advancements to humanity, but it also breeds the expert bias. I believe they should be more open to outsider perspectives as they're subject to this confirmation bias within their own expert circles, but I'm just an idiot.
Okay, Phil, again, I don't think you're an idiot, and I totally agree with you. The expert bias is absolutely a thing, and I try my best to advocate against it as much as possible in all of my videos. Whether or not I personally think that science is an ivory tower, the fact remains that many people view it that way, and that scares them away from it. I don't demand that you have a PhD in this space, Philip. I just want you to take this a little bit more seriously. I can see that you hold some kind of deep resentment towards science. I don't know if it's from having a bad science teacher or a bad science class, or from just listening to pseudoscientists spoon-feed you misinformation about how all the scientists think they're better than you. But it's not like that, Phil. You are a scientist. Granted, your methods kind of suck ass, but we're working on that. You inspire people to learn about space and the pyramids and shit. And that's why I'm doing this, Phil. Not to fucking lampoon you, not to crucify you, not to cancel you, but because in some fucked up way, I view you as a peer. I see that you love this shit. I see you inspire people and connect with your audience. I am holding you to the standards of science not to look down my nose at you, but to help you become the scientist that can open doors and inspire people. While a scientist deals in facts and never opinions, the one opinion that I will give you in this video, Philip, is that you are not an idiot and no one is ever a lost cause.
When I talk about advanced civilizations, giants, ancient aliens, it's not because I believe them to be the ultimate truth. It's because these ideas exist, and humans are capable and should be encouraged to engage with ideas through thought.
Yes, Philip. That's what I did. I engaged with these ideas, did research, and was able to prove that they are wrong. This isn't about shutting down these ideas or not listening to them. I listened to all of them painstakingly. I could not have made a 3.5-hour series and however fucking long this video is without listening to you painstakingly. Emphasis on pain. The simple fact that an idea exists does not make it exempt from criticism.
And that's my problem here. We live in a very dichotomous society where people can enjoy the nuances of a fringe theory and claim that every idea has to be either 100% true or it's a conspiracy. We still need to be careful and not fall into the camp of the far-gone conspiracy theorist who adamantly believes with 100% certainty the government's lying to us and hiding the truth. Those people are no better than the Google debunkers who think the news, academics, our science, and history textbooks are 100% unquestionably true.
Philip, you are actively removing the nuance from these theories by stating them all as fact. This is another cop-out to just not address what I'm saying to you. This is the same thing as I'm entitled to my opinion or it's just a joke. It's just that in this case, guys, it's really not that serious. No one is saying something needs to be 100% true or it is a conspiracy theory. Neither you, myself, or either of our audiences believe that. That is not what is going on here. Okay, we're getting to the end here, Philip, but I'm really glad you brought this up because I think it's finally time that we talk about Google debunkers.
Speaking of Google, how about those debunkers?
I'm bringing Schminky over here for this one. Schminky loves Google debunkers.
Honestly, Google debunkers, I love that phrase is growing the way it is, and I also think it's fucking hilarious, so please, everyone keep using it, it's great.
Philip, I'm teetering between whether or not this is cope. I feel like I have a hunch, but I'm gonna say it's not. And thank you, Phil, and I do have to thank you for Google debunkers, because you are right, it is really fucking funny. Okay, where do you have to go? Oh, under my legs. Okay, cool. And these fucking mind-numbing videos on you gave my audience their name finally, so I guess I have to thank you for that as well.
I came up with it after realizing how much in-depth research conspiracy videos really do take, and how much reading between the lines and logical deduction is sometimes required.
Reading between the lines? Do you mean cherry picking? Cherry picking fallacy. We talked about your research earlier, Philip, so I'm not going to go deep into it, but I will remind you that the amount of time you spend researching something does not necessarily mean the research was good. You're a walking, talking example of that.
A Google debunker is someone who blindly accepts what the news, academics, the government, people in positions of authority and power say as the ultimate unquestionable truth of reality.
I wonder who that guy is. I wonder if he's done anything or has any conspiracies around him. I don't know. It's probably nothing. Philip, as much as I appreciate you defining Google debunkers, that is not the way that you used it in your videos. Let me remind you how you use the term Google debunkers. You would say something that is wrong and then say, but the Google debunkers will tell you. You used it as an opportunity to get out ahead of people who would fact check your videos. By pulling the Google debunkers card, you are making people ashamed to do their own research, which I don't know if you see the irony here, but is exactly what you're accusing me of. You say I'm trying to silence you and shut you down and make you too ashamed to speak up, when you literally invented an insult for people who would fact check you and used it against them before they even did it. Your Google debunkers thing was as anti-scientific and anti-critical thinking as you can possibly get. I'm really not surprised that this has been your response to being fact checked when normally your response is to shut people down before they even open their mouths.
Someone will spend hours or maybe even days researching a certain fringe topic that a debunker will do a 5-second Google search for, clicking the first, I don't know, Reuters link that pops up, debunking the conspiracy that Mr. Tinfoil Hat spent days looking into. That is a Google debunker.
Philip, if you spend days researching a theory that can be debunked with a Reuters link, it probably wasn't a very good theory. Obviously, cross-check sources, don't just listen to the first thing that comes up, but do you hear yourself here? Facebook posts, podcasts, and forum threads are not somehow more reliable than fucking Associated Press or Reuters or a peer-reviewed journal. This just affirms to me again that you don't get how research works. It is not a merit to a theory to have it be able to be debunked by someone who literally just types your words into Google.
Because I suspect there may be a chance that $1 trillion search engine that basically directs the thoughts of the entire civilized world might have certain people in key positions of power with deep pockets influencing what sort of info is shown to the masses.
Yeah, I know. I I see it too. I just can't. The classic move. You found something that debunks me? Well, the source is biased. You found multiple things that debunk me? Then the whole internet is biased. What search engine do you use for your research, Philip? If it isn't Google, what search engine is it? And how different are the results? And if it is Google, you can fuck right off.
But what exactly is so harmful and dangerous about alternate history theories that gets people so angry that they demand to have them removed from ever being discussed?
Oh, Jesus. Well, that's a great question, Philip. So, what exactly is... Man, this is exhausting. Okay, other than the fact that this is the question that's being asked, let's see what Philip has to say about it.
Oh, it's because it's harmful to the hundreds of years of research of experts in their fields.
I am so sick of this fucking elitism conversation. Jesus Christ. All right, Philip, I'm wrapping this video up. I'm not going to give you an entire lecture on why misinformation is bad, because I think you're smarter than that. This entire video has been me making the distinction between why a conspiracy theory and a scientific theory are not equitable to one another. This is just another piss-poor attempt to downplay what you are doing and try and make it seem like, hey, it really isn't that bad. You know what? I'm going crazy. I'm going real influencer mode. I'm holding the fucking mic now. But Philip, if you need me to give you a concise answer as to why misinformation is bad, it's because it makes people stupider. You are taking things that are not true and posing them as fact, which not only makes people more gullible and blurs the line of the truth, but makes you look like kind of a clown. Now, this is the conclusion of this video, and I'm just gonna go completely off script. Philip, I found writing a conclusion for this video to be a fool's errand. It ended up just turning into me rehashing everything I've been saying to you for the past hour. I think at this point there can be no confusion at all of what is being asked of you, but in the off chance there is, let me say it one more time very clearly. Philip, you have an obligation to not spread misinformation and lies wrapped as being fun facts and thought-provoking theories to your widely impressionable audience of more than 1.5 million people. I do not need to justify to you why spreading lies and misinformation is bad in order for you to make this change. I gave you a chance with my first video. You responded with something highly defensive and did not address any of the points I was making. And to an extent, I sympathize with this response. I can see how the first video could make you reactionary and be easy to misconstrue. But in this video, Philip, I have left no room for confusion. This is strike 2. I am only gonna make one more video on you, Philip, and it is up to you what that video is. If you want to waste this opportunity by making a video that's just as reactionary and dismissive as the last one, be my guest. As much as I'd prefer that you go for the redemption arc, if there's one thing that the internet loves, it's a crucifixion. Now, another option that you have if you do choose to make a response back is to acknowledge what I am saying to you. Don't be passive-aggressive and dismissive, just say yes, heard, and say that you're gonna make a change. I'll respond and let my audience know to support you if it actually seems like you're being genuine. But Philip, here is my suggestion of what you should do. I don't think you should say a goddamn thing. I think you should listen to what I'm saying to you in this video, metabolize it, ruminate on it, and then instead of making some video response that's dismissive or deflective, illustrate that you acknowledge what I am saying to you through your actions. Take responsibility for your content and the things that you're saying. Put in the research that you owe your audience, and give clarification when the things that you're talking about as theories are widely debunked pseudoscience. Assuming that you don't make a video response, Philip, I will check back in on your account in 1 year. I will look at all the things you made between now and then, and I'll even forgive the things that you made between my first video and this one, because let me tell you you didn't change a goddamn bit. And after this 1 year has elapsed, I will make my final video on you, and it will be up to your own actions to decide whether or not this video will be a redemption or a decapitation. This is strike 3, Philip. Don't fuck it up. All right, well, as promised at the beginning of this video, you know what needs to happen now. It's like the Punxsutawney couch. If Philip gives a shitty response, it has to be thrown out the window. Honestly, Philip, you're actually doing me a fucking favor here. You want me to let you in on a little secret? Cat pissed on this couch, tried to wash it, still smells like piss, so I actually needed to get rid of it anyway. And I figured that you could be the perfect scapegoat to give me a reason to film throwing it out the window. You got me, the jig is up. All right, let's fucking do this. Nothing concerning to see here, neighbors. Everything is completely under control. Okay, that thing is ready to go as soon as I am. Okay, I'm trying to think of something elegant to say, but I think there's only so much elegance you can have when you're throwing a couch out a window. Remember to stay curious, stay inquisitive, and most importantly, Philip, this is strike 3. The ball is in your court. Oh wait, great idea. I could use the bat. I guess ball is in your court isn't actually the right turn of phrase if it's strike 3.
Strike 3, yeah.
That would be you're up to bat, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I like that even more. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Milo Rossi. Remember to stay curious, stay inquisitive, and most importantly, Philip, this is strike 3. And you're up to bat. Oh, fuck. Okay, and you're out. So this would be strike 2 then. All right, fuck. Okay.
Strike 2.
Maybe this is strike 2.
I think it's strike 2.
I think this is strike 2. Okay, this is strike 2. I feel like we can make a good outro out of that. I'm just leaving it as that. That's fucking hilarious.
I kind of like it here.
Oh, it's actually kind of nice. Wow.
I feel like our driveway needed some class.